This MathCast was created by Lee Lepar, intended for first graders to help them find and name two-dimensional shapes, including a trapezoid, a rhombus, and a square, as a special rectangle based on defining attributes of sides and corners. Some vocabulary words we might need are trapezoid, which is a two-dimensional or a flat shape with four sides and exactly one pair of parallel sides. A rhombus, which is a two-dimensional or a flat shape with four congruent or equal sides, and a square, which is a two-dimensional shape with four congruent or equal sides and four right or 90-degree angles. Now let's see if we can define all of these shapes as either a square, a rhombus, or a trapezoid. So we're going to use red for the squares, blue for rhombus, and yellow for trapezoid. So let's start off with this shape. Based on our definitions of a square is a two-dimensional shape with four congruent sides and four right angles. Now if we look at this shape, it only has 1, 2, 3 sides. So that means that it's not a square. Now let's look at our definition for a rhombus. A rhombus is a two-dimensional shape with four congruent sides. Once again, it only has 3 sides, so it's not a rhombus. And let's look at trapezoid. A trapezoid is a two-dimensional shape with 4 sides. Again, it only has 3 sides, so it's none of those. So let's put an X through it. Now let's look at the next shape, this one. Let's start off with a trapezoid. This shape has 4 sides, and it looks like these 2 sides are going to be parallel. So we can name this one a trapezoid. So then let's move on to the next shape. Let's look at this one. Now if we look at trapezoid again, a two-dimensional shape with 4 sides and exactly one pair of parallel sides. This one looks like it's going to have 2 sets of parallel sides. So let's move on to a rhombus, two-dimensional shape with 4 congruent sides. All of the sides look to be congruent, so we could name this a rhombus. And since this shape doesn't have any right angles, it's not going to be a square, so we'll name it a rhombus. Now let's look at the next shape. It has 4 sides. One pair of the sides seems to be parallel, so we'll name it a trapezoid. Now let's look at the next shape. This shape looks like it has only 3 sides, which makes it none of our options, so we'll X it out. Now we look at the next shape. Now this one looks like it has 2 sets of parallel sides, 4 right angles, but all the sides aren't congruent. So this means that this shape is none of our options. Now we move on to the next one. It has 4 congruent sides, 2 which are parallel, but no right angles. So we'll name this one a rhombus. This next one has 4 congruent sides, and it looks like it will have 4 right angles. That makes it a square. Same with the next one, 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles, making it a square. Now that we've practiced identifying all of our shapes, go ahead and see if you can identify all of these shapes on your own. Now let's do it together. So these shapes you can move into their respected categories. So let's start off with the square column. Which one of these looks to be a square? Since we know that a square is a two-dimensional shape with 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles, we'll look for that first. This one doesn't have 4 congruent sides or 4 right angles. This one doesn't have any 4 right angles. This one only has 3 sides. This one doesn't have 4 congruent sides or 4 right angles. Neither does this one. But this one looks like it does. So we'll move this one into the square column. Now this one looks like it has 4 sides and 1 set of parallel sides. That makes it a trapezoid. So we'll move it in the trapezoid column. Now we'll move on to the next shape. This one only has 3 sides, and we know that that doesn't go with any of our categories, so we'll exit off. Now we look at this one. It looks like it has 4 congruent sides, but it doesn't have right angles, meaning that it's not a square. So we'll move it to the rhombus category. Then we look at this one. It has 4 sides. They're not congruent, which means they're not a square or a rhombus, which makes it a trapezoid. Now the next shape, last one, 4 congruent sides, no right angles, which makes it not a square. This means it's a rhombus.